Okay, good evening. It is Thursday, January 25th, 7:01. We have a quorum. There is a deviation. We are meeting actually in the second floor of Town Hall as opposed to the first floor. The planning meeting that was taking this room from 6 p.m. actually got out in time, so we were able to move upstairs. We have posted notices on the door and on the entrances to Town Hall that we are up here, so we're taking advantage of the larger room and the better recording, bigger screen. So my name is Carl Hummel. I'm the chair. The commissioners will now introduce themselves.
Sweet.
Leah Whiting.
Peter Coffin.
Susan Cahalan.
And remote,
Tim Icardi.
we have our conservation agent.
Isabella Genova.
Okay. We have no public hearings today. We do have John Nenart in the building and we have people on screen, so we will jump to talking about agenda item number 3, 4549 Uxbridge Road, review status of site and stormwater pollution prevention plans and take any action required. But before we get to that, I have two other orders of business. We had correspondence from, where did I put it?
You looking for this?
Yeah. I got my own copy. Okay. I'm going to give 3 chair rulings based on investigation and analysis that we conducted in the past 2 weeks. Chair ruling number 1, request from Kevin Meehan. There has been a written request by counsel for applicant that 2 members of the Conservation Commission be recused from all matters involving Mr. Meehan and his entities. As chair, I have reviewed the requests with town council and her advice informs my decisions. In response, the chair makes the following rulings. A request that Commissioner Coffin be recused on all matters involving Mr. Meehan and his entities is denied. However, Commissioner Coffin will continue to recuse himself with any matter that he is an abutter for. B, a request that Commissioner Whiting be recused on all matters involving Mr. Meehan and his entities is denied. Commissioner Whiting has no conflict of interest with respect to Mr. Meehan and is able to perform her duties as a commissioner. I do not intend to discuss either of these 2 rulings further. I will be responding to the lawyer, to the attorney via email tomorrow morning or Monday, depending on when I get back on email again. Second, conducting review of projects from the Meehan Group. Given the potential for personality conflicts during discussions of projects from the Meehan Group, the chair has ruled that Robert's Rules of Order will be more closely followed. Specifically, 1, a meeting participant must be recognized by the chair before speaking. 2, speakers must address all remarks to the chair. Crosstalk between meeting participants is not allowed. And third one, on the concom@mendonma.gov email distribution list. It was brought to my attention that while reviewing the recent request for recusals, that the current distribution of the Concom mailing and mendonma.gov emails may be a violation of the open meeting law. To remove any chance of non-compliance, the chair has ruled that the distribution will be restricted to the conservation agent and the chair. If the chair is unavailable and an acting chair is designated, the chair would be temporarily removed and the designee added for the duration. The potential risk is that some members of the Conservation Commission would have access to correspondence and emails and not others. And that is unfair to the people who would not be getting it. So with those items out of the way, we will now proceed to the more strict way of reviewing status of the site. So could you introduce yourself, please?
John Nennan with Route 85 Realty.
Okay, and your opening status statement?
So I was informed that I needed to come in again for 4549 Uxbridge Road that I was in yesterday. I believe you guys are saying that there was a deviation from the original plans that conservation approves and board approves, but I don't believe that's the case at all.
Okay. Isabella?
Yeah, so I want the board to review further the as-built plan for the, I think there were a couple in the special order of conditions. I think a few of them were not followed, being scenario 2, work should not occur when flow is occurring. Pre-construction meeting can document that no flow is occurring and things are dry enough for work. And scenario 6, the contractor applicant must notify the commission if any erosion problems occur. And so I think the violation was before I started. And so I think the temporary retention basin was different from the plan because it was more water collecting than should have been for building the underground storage basin. And so I have the plans again if people want to look at them further. And so I recommend that we issue an enforcement order, which would allow the opportunity for commissioners to request things from the applicant, say a phase plan on how we're getting from the temporary basin to the retention basin. I know that the stream reconstruction is starting next week, and most of the basin has already been filled in. I saw that today on the walk and I have pictures. So I think that could go in the enforcement order. I also think how the water and the sediment that's collected in the check dams should be dealt with, should be written in the order. And then the having dates for a bordering vegetated wetland restoration plan and Lake Nipmuc restoration plan in the enforcement order will give a timeline for both the applicant and the commission to see those.
Do you have the enforcement order written at this time?
No, because
When would you expect to write it and have it executed?
well, based on the commission's findings, reviewing the plans, I can draft that for the next meeting.
Okay. And would there be an expectation that we would have a stop work order? Or would this be just for paperwork and compliance and monitoring?
That's up to the commission. I don't think it needs a cease work order unless you all find it to be. But I think the issue of building the pond, the temporary retention basin is past now because most of it's been filled.
Okay. I see someone from Goddard is on remote. Do you wish to speak on this before we ask the commissioners to give their input?
Not at this time, but Tom Schutz from Goddard Consulting here for the applicant as well. I will speak after I hear the commission.
Okay. All right, we'll work our way down. Peter, do you have feedback on the issues under discussion are, should we construct an enforcement order, and the enforcement order would say whether we should have a phase plan or not?
Whether we should have a what plan?
There would be a phase plan saying, how do you get from the current state as of today with it partially filled to the final end state with the completion of the project?
You call that phase, sort of like a construction sequence.
Yes.
Where build this and do this.
Yes.
Right. I guess I have a couple questions
Okay.
for someone. My concern with the site is I reviewed a little bit the original notice of intent, and there's a stormwater checklist. And one of which is that exact thing that you're supposed to have, a construction sequence plan. And I'm saying, no, I don't see it. There's an asterisk by it, and it says, in cases of kind of extensive, complicated sites, the authority, us, can waive that. So I don't know, because that is really the key thing, how to handle the stormwater during construction when they have to rebuild the stream. So usually you build it. I don't need to go.
Okay, so you would speak in favor of an enforcement order?
Yes, I would.
Okay.
And then more importantly, in my opinion, is that the site grew when they cleared the top and are using that to process gravel. That Hall Road, and I thought it was only just around for the second crossing. Now to go up there, and then it's caused a lot of more erosion, I'm assuming, because you take down trees, and then it can't the water can't go the way it went because it hits the Hall Road and it comes down the west side, causing problems in that spur. So it needs a lot of look at, and I'm glad, we got professionals on site, but those are professionals that are hired by the firm. So we need someone,
So then on top of an, okay.
I'm gonna put my foot down. Okay, so have you completed talking?
yes.
Okay, so I'd look for a response from the applicant first and then Isabella.
So I didn't get to respond to Isabella, so I'll kind
Okay.
of respond to this at both times. So this is an ongoing construction site. We have filed a SWIP. We're under obligation if we installed all the sill fence and wattles to plan at the start of the project. As the project has gone on, we're under obligation through our SWIP to increase and fix any stormwater problems that occur. The only way to fix what was going on the site with the heavy rains was to put a temporary basin where the finished basin is going to go. Put that in. We still were getting silt going down. We added plunge pools, all the things I discussed last week. We're under obligation to come up with solutions to try to clean the stormwater. We did everything we possibly could at this site to slow down the water, to clean the water before it gets into the wetlands. DEP was out there twice. He had no other suggestions for us on what else we could do on the site. That is part of our SWIP. We're under obligation to that. It was a courtesy for me to supply you guys with an interim as-built of what was going on the site with those things. Normally on a construction site, you build it till it's done, you submit a final as-built that matches the plans. There's no interim as-built that is going to match the design plans because it's not built yet. On top of that, it's a site that is all ledge, so it takes time to chip the ledge out, blast the ledge out to create these structures. So all that we can do as an applicant is to try to control the water. Every time we get to a different phase, we try to control it differently. Since the last meeting, we've put all the stone that goes underneath the underground basin in and filled in the open basin. Those stones have 40% voids. It's all designed to hold the amount of water that's going there. The pipe that comes underneath the building. The pipe is on site now to pipe that across that now that we have that up to elevation. Before we were still blasting and removing material under that to get to the bottom where the stone has to be for the underground basin. So now that the stone's in, now we can connect the pipe that comes underneath the building over to where the stream bed's going to go. So now that water will no longer go through the basin. As Isabella said, they've started, they had some more ledge in one of the corner. They're going to start construction on the continuation of the stream bed that goes around the parking lot, I would say in the next week or two. So I still don't understand what I'm getting an enforcement order. I've done everything correctly on the site and you guys want to issue me an enforcement order. So
Okay.
I'm a little bit
We will
confused about
answer that question. Goddard, do you have anything in response?
Do you mind if I just share my screen? I want to pull up the notice of intent plan just so we can remind the commission what was approved in the first place.
I can pull them up.
I have a colored up plan just to make it easier for everybody.
Go ahead.
Okay, can everybody see my screen here?
Yeah, I gotta go on.
Yes.
Can everybody see it?
So small, but yeah.
Is the site plan up?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, so just going over existing conditions. This is the large hill with the existing warehouse at the top. We have an existing BVW system to the north of that. And then we have the intermittent stream currently running out of that system right there. We have the proposed access road, which was approved by the commission, that goes all the way up and around. And as Peter was saying that this wasn't allowed, we did get the approval from the Conservation Commission to do the access road all the way up and around and clear this entire area. You can see the intermittent stream running down through this section here, which it would be underneath the proposed basin. This area right here is currently where that stormwater basin that was constructed to stop any sediment from going into the BVW is currently in place. You can see the large grades up here where that hill is currently in place, which is conforming to the existing conditions in the field today. And then we can see this is the stream bed in purple, which is currently being constructed. We got the approval from the commission to replace this 280 feet of the old stream to reroute it around this area and replace it with 240 feet of stream. That takes time, and you can see it's currently going to be rerouted where the current basin is located, and John has said that is currently being constructed. We're conforming with the order of conditions. I have the order of conditions right here. That was the approved plan. Here's the order of conditions to show the alteration that was approved by the commission. 282 feet of linear that was going to be altered, and then it was going to be replaced with 240 feet of linear stream. So we're doing everything that was approved by the commission and going further by making sure that the stormwater is clean before it enters the wetland prior to having any kind of sediment spill like we did in the past. So that's just what I have to say on that. Furthermore, the bordering vegetated wetland down to the south right here that had the silt outbreak, we spoke on it last time. It's a minor dusting in that. We don't think that at this point there should be any kind of action taking place to remediate that silt that has entered that wetland, specifically because there's too much water in there. Any kind of remediation effort would lead to more impacts to the BVW and then the downstream wetland resource areas. So we recommend that we wait until the summer and dry conditions and then proceed with any cleanup efforts that might be needed, if any.
Okay. Could you quantify light dusting?
If a light dusting would be, it honestly looks like if you went out in the field into a wetland and you saw an area that looked to have stained leaves with some small particles on top of it, it looked like leaf staining almost, but the dusting is just a minor precipitate that came out of the silt when it went over during that one stormwater event.
Okay, does anybody else want to ask questions for clarification, not for bringing up other topics?
Yes.
Okay,
So the original NOI that the town approved.
Yes.
Were there things that changed from that original NOI because you had to adapt to conditions that were happening there?
That
The
is
erosion
correct.
control, that is correct, yes.
So you had to change NOI in some way, shape or form to control the stormwater?
No, the NOI is based on the final as-built plan. It is not based on during construction, what you have to do to control stormwater and stuff during construction. Tom, you have any comment on that?
If we hadn't built the basin during the stormwater event, then we would have a large-scale silt outbreak in the BVW. All changes that were made during that stormwater event were due to the fact that we were trying to protect the wetland resources. If these weren't done, we'd have a large-scale mitigation effort that we currently do not have. And in the area that we already were proposing, the parking lot and the stormwater management system. So we were working in an area that was already an area that was proposed for work. We didn't work anywhere outside of that scope.
Can I ask one more thing? I'm sorry.
I
I wasn't here.
want to let
Okay.
Isabella's turn.
Well, I think the two questions I have is that work should not occur when flow is occurring and notify the commission if any erosion problems
Thank
occur. When you adapted to build the temporary basin, why wasn't the commission notified? When was the basin built? How long ago?
I do have something on the other thing. I did notify the commission once the silt fence and everything was in before the start of work, and start of work was constructed when it was not raining out. But it's been almost a year now, or not quite a year, but probably like 9 months since we started construction. So we didn't start construction when that stream was flowing like it is now.
Okay, Peter,
Jeff, I'm
Move-
looking, I
move-
guess, at the
move
original,
the mic over.
looking at the original site plan, and it's got like 9 of 9 it shows we gave them approval to build that whole road with the two crossings. I'm not saying that's the end of erosion control. That's the end of erosion control there. I wasn't allowed on sites. I guess I can go now, maybe. I don't know, I have to ask permission, but I was led to believe that the top of the hill is where the destination of all the whole road. So I don't think they can get a truck up this 3-to-1 slope that we approved them to. And the results of clearing off that whole top of the hill, that must be more than an acre.
Is the.
That's
clear-
caused
is
a
the-
lot more water to come down
That, I'm interrupting because that may be out of order. Is the top of the hill within,
the site. It's
But
not
it's-
on the plan.
but it's within the site, but is it something that the Conservation Commission would be involved in because it's in the, outside of the buffer zone?
I should hope so, because once erosion has gotten in, you have to go, where's it coming from? What's the cause of it? And I would submit to you that there would have been anyways, because you've got to build a detention pond. You've used existing streams, so you should have diverted the stream. First of all, you should have built a detention pond. We didn't.
Okay, that's.
But you've enlarged the drainage area significantly. You've changed the curve number from a wooded and that water's got to go somewhere. It comes downstream. That's one item. The other item is it's a tough site to control. The old stream that went under the existing building probably leaks with all the water we've had. And so,
Well, let me.
so my
let me-
question
let
is,
me-
how big is the site? We approved this area. We've received as-built with this and this area. So,
Well, I want to redirect. The specific topic we're discussing at this point is whether the commission will agree to the recommendation that Isabella prepare an enforcement order with a specific set of items. So I want to hold off discussions on what Peter just raised until after we finish discussing the enforcement order.
Well,
I had something.
Well, let me go back to Isabella because I made her wait.
I think it is valid that the upland has been clear cut as well.
Okay, so in terms of your response to John and Tom were saying, well, John was saying he doesn't see why an enforcement order is required. So can you speak to why it is helpful for you as our conservation agent to have that document as we move forward for the duration of the site?
So the enforcement order can be updated after every walk that we go on, and it will just be a living document for the town. It doesn't get filed with the state or anything. So it's just allowing me and you and Tom and Goddard to agree on, you say it's a light dusting. I think there's more than a light dusting, but again, there's standing water and it's very murky. So if it turns out to be more than half an inch, getting a restoration plan. For Lake Nipmuc, there was a sediment plume. One of the days that I walked the site after the rainstorms. So if we want a restoration plan for Lake Nipmuc, I would like to have that in writing in the enforcement order on the days we expect and agree upon, you would reassess.
I will note that we do not expect that the enforcement order would require any remediation work until the summer dry season. But as I said, the thing that I would like to resolve tonight is we would have a motion to have Isabella prepare an enforcement order in conjunction with you. And then it would come back and then we would approve the enforcement order and its current state at our next meeting. As she said, if it turns out she needs to modify it, she would come back with an update on the status of that.
I'm fine
enforcement
to
order.
work something out like that. I
Okay.
have no problem because I don't feel like we've done anything wrong up there. As for the top of the hill, that was all cleared with a previous problem. And anything we've done out there is more than 110 feet from the buffer. Most of that water goes to the right side of the site, not
Okay.
the side.
So now that we've got a consensus on the enforcement order, I will I will now entertain a motion that authorizes Isabella, our conservation agent, to generate an enforcement order and work with the site manager and Goddard on what the language will be, the expectation that we would review and approve the EO at our next meeting. Do I have someone making that motion? Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, moved by Peter, seconded by Leah. Any further discussion on the motion? Okay, I will now call a roll call vote.
Peter, I.
Leah, I.
Well, I.
Tim, I.
Okay, thank you. Passes unanimously. All right, the second thing that we wanted to discuss is the status of asking the applicant to generate a amendment to the current NOI or to generate a new NOI. And my summary of why this would happen is because there is a discrepancy between the current site and the NOI that was approved. And that discrepancy is great enough that we need to reconcile the paperwork. So I will now turn to Isabella for a better description of what I just said.
Right, amend the order of conditions or require a new NOI. We could also hire a peer review to go over the as-built and the current site. So then commissioners can voice their opinion on that, which would be additional to the enforcement order.
Can I ask a question?
Well, let me ask. So specifically, why is the deviation from the original NOI? Is there other things in the NOI that have not been followed since it was approved that we would ask to have an amendment to it?
I think that the impacts to building that basin were further into the elevation in the as-built versus the interim as-built, and the elevation of the parking lot differs by about 2 to 4 feet in my looking, but that might not be anything the commission wants to act on. But that's where I think the temporary basin cut in further than the plans approved were.
Okay. I'll do my usual thing and get input as to whether people on the commission agree or think that this is something that should be discussed. So Peter, do you have input on this?
I guess I would echo our agent's concern that the site is different than what notice covered. So it's at that state, and to me, it's a fair amount significant when it comes to how it's changed.
Can you move towards the mic?
I think by including the top of the hill in the site plan would change dramatically the hydrology of the site. So that might require a new set of eyes and some peer review of someone who can generate pre and post off of that top of the hill, I guess it's.
Okay, Leah, do you have input?
I just want to know how much the current NOI is different from what we would see if we saw a site walk.
Okay,
I think a new NOI generated would give us the opportunity to get better site review and get more reports either bi-weekly or monthly. So that way the site could be monitored better.
that's not an issue because the existing NOI does give us the opportunity. We are, as of December, now receiving the reports that the existing NOI requires, and Isabella is actively engaged in that. So there would have to be other reasons for why we'd want an amendment or an NOI. We are already getting the documentation and paperwork, ongoing reports that we're supposed to.
Right, well, in that case, then it would be because the site has increased in size. It's beyond the scope of what was approved.
Okay,
I would say, just, modify the order of conditions. Mediation of what's happening, especially with these bad storms and whatnot.
okay. Tim,
Yeah, I agree with Susan. I think, we could modify it, to reflect any kind of change. I mean, look, we've, been experiencing the rain that we've been experiencing. It's hurting projects all over the state. So, it's a difficult thing to deal with. And it's obviously a difficult site. Look at the thing. I think, if the NOI should be altered, then let's change it, modify it and let them finish the project so we can get they can get the thing done. I mean, I'm sure they have to, things change during the project. If he's supplying the SWIPs weekly or every 2 weeks, I mean, those are going to show what they're doing to correct any issues and shows what they're dealing with. So I think, why don't we just work with them to get this thing done and modify it? I don't see starting a new one is going to help anything.
Okay, so my taking the temperature, there is an interest in having an amendment as it's a lesser burden on the applicant. So do you or Tom want to speak
I
first?
just want to say something. So I do understand Peter's concern on the top. All that is outside of the 100-foot buffer.
Yes, that was
I
the
do
point
understand
I
that. That
raised.
was cleared with a previous problem. When I came to all the board meetings, I showed that access road on the existing condition plans. I let the board know that this is where we're going to handle our material up at the top of the hill. We weren't hiding anything. I wasn't hiding anything from the board. If you look at the meetings, I'm sure I said it in every meeting for here and planning board, that this is where we were gonna process some materials. We would run trucks up there, and if trucks were coming in and out, they would go out through the Uxbridge, through that top site. So I have silt fence all around there. There's only a couple spots that even go downhill from that. It's almost like a big pole where everything kind of stays up in there. And that's why we decided that's where we were going to do our handling of materials. The second thing is to amend an NOI because you're in the middle of construction and the as-builts don't match what the final as-built is going to be. We would be amending the NOI every other week because you're never going to match the final as-built until the site is done. So you're amending an NOI to an as-built that's an interim as-built that was in place to control the runoff during construction. So all I'm saying is to use that I guess, I don't know, to use that as an excuse for an amended NOI, you would be doing an NOI every couple weeks. We're under a SWIP. Isabella gets a report every 2 weeks. If there's any problems on the site, she will know about it. She can walk the site anytime. She called me. I gave her permission to walk the site by herself today. I didn't need to be there. I'm not trying to hide anything up there. I feel I've done everything correctly up there. So to have us have to file an amended NOI and go through the whole process again, it's a public hearing again. I think is nonsense because you wanted me to file an NOI based on, and we didn't go below any grade. Why would we go deeper than we have to for blasting? We went to the 408 grade, which is the bottom. Right now, the parking lot's not built, so of course we're below grade. We have to build that up from the bottom up with stone, and we're not there yet. So to say that the elevation of the parking lot's different, the elevation of the parking lot that is on the plans will be the final grade for the parking lot when it's done. The drainage will be the as-built of the drainage when the site is done. You're asking me to file an amended notice of intent based on an interim as-built that's during construction. It
Okay.
doesn't make any sense to me. I've never seen that done.
Okay, Tom, do you have a response?
I would just, like to echo John's point and say that we are mid-construction right now, and just because what's out there doesn't match what we proposed right now doesn't mean it's not going to at some point. And when we go through the certificate of compliance section of this permitting process, you'll see that the as-built then, when everything is constructed, will match the proposed conditions that were approved in the original notice of intent.
I just have.
Yep, back to you.
And then with the enforcement order and a timeline, you'll have a better control of it with just the enforcement order of the work going forward and where we're going to be at certain times. It's hard for me to guarantee that everything is going to be done on time because the rock out there is brutal. There's areas that are soft and I can say, yeah, we can get this out of there now, but there's areas that we have not been able to get through. It's hard as a rock we've been working on for months.
Okay.
So I can give you a timeline, but the rock may alter that time.
Okay, I now want to turn to Isabella. Are you able to say specific things that you would expect to see in an amendment that are significantly materially different from the existing NOI that warrant going through that public hearing process?
Well, if we amended the order of conditions, not saying amend the NOI, the amendment for the order
Okay,
of
I
conditions,
spoke then.
the amendment for the order of conditions could have a whole list of things the commission wants to see, like a phased construction sequence, on how we're gonna get from point A to point B on the basis that the scope of the project has changed.
Aren't you gonna put that in the enforcement order though? Didn't we just discuss putting that in the enforcement order?
Yeah, that can be in the enforcement order. If the order of conditions would be refiled with the state, so it depends on what the commission wants to go through.
Okay, so it sounds like here's what I would propose and people can speak against it. We we voted on having an enforcement order written up and we will be reviewing it in 2 weeks. What I would ask is that we table the issue of an amendment to the OOC until the next meeting. Isabella will then be able to say, here's the EO, and she would be able to specifically say, working with, provide a specific list of things that she would want added and that are different. Isabella, does that sound like a reasonable compromise?
Yeah, I mean, I'm just presenting to the board to have
Right.
them make their decision,
Okay,
not my decision.
right. And so after we write the EO, you would then be able to say, here are other things that would go in an amendment.
Yes.
Okay, yep.
So there is no way to amend to just change an order condition with amendments without filing an amended NOI and going through the whole.
Okay,
There is
that,
no, I
we'd research that.
No,
There
you
is
you
no
can
way.
you can amend in an order of conditions.
was told by DEP multiple times, there, you can amend it with an amended notice of intent.
Okay, we would clarify that in the next 2. That's another reason to hunt for 2 weeks and then come
I was
back
told
with
by
more
Council
information.
David Bragg from DEP,
And
that
when,
there is no
Right.
way to
And-
just amend a current order of condition.
and when did you have that conversation?
That conversation going through a site at 21 Beaver Street less than 8 weeks ago.
Okay,
Well, my circuit, this,
Yep. okay. So, since this was all just sort of a semi-informal discussion, we will not have a motion or anything. We will just wait and see whether we bring it up. This is the advantage of not being too specific in the agenda about stuff. Yes, did you have another comment?
I actually have a couple of different questions. John,
Yeah.
how are you guys making out with the rock in the front? Are you gonna end up by blasting that, or how are you gonna deal with
I
that?
believe we're gonna end up blasting that. Oh.
No,
Just have it, Carl, I'm sorry.
no.
Well, he started.
The other question I have is, and I'll do it this way, the applicant spoke to increased water flowing to the right side, I believe, of the property. How is that being addressed?
Okay,
Not, I didn't say, that's where the water flows. I'm not saying increased water flow to the right side. There was no trees up there to begin with. They were all cut previously. So I didn't say there's not more water going to the right side. That's just where that water from the top of the hill goes. It doesn't come to the left where we're having the problems. And what was the other thing? That was another thing you said.
No, I was talking about the rock and the
rock was.
Oh, and the rock. So we're currently we've been in front of Mass Highway since January 1st last year, trying to get our curb cut and blasting permit to blast that 16. We're working with Mass Highway. I talked to the engineers 2 days ago, 6 days ago, every 4 days I talked to the engineer. So we're moving along. We don't have the blasting permit yet to do that because it's within 500 feet of a state highway. We have to get the blasting permit through Mass Highway. We've been trying to get that since last year. So as soon as we get that, then we will drill and blast that.
Can I make a request?
Yes, you have
It
a
would
question.
really help me. I'm a visual person.
Oh, sure.
If the next time you go out, Isabella, that if I could go and look at the site so that I can see how all of this looks.
I'm going to bring that up.
Okay, thank you.
That's just, after we finish discussing the site, that's a procedural thing
Sorry,
about site.
getting ahead
visit.
of you.
Oh, no. It's on my list. I'm just saying it's not specific to 49, 45,
Gotcha.
45, 49 experts. So any further discussion on this particular site?
I can walk through the site walk I went to today. I have
Okay,
pictures.
please. Yep.
Do you wanna talk while I go through it, or?
That's up to you guys. I can explain
Yes,
what
if-
you're seeing.
The two of you can colloquy.
Okay, so this is the area where the temporary basin is. You can see as we're filling it with stone. So underneath the 3-inch stone there is 3/4 stone wrapped in filter fabric in like envelopes, and then 3-inch stone above it. So we're almost to the bottom of where the underground basin structures would go. They would sit on top of that. In the back there, next to the garage door, is where the stream bed comes down. So that's the area that's still open. Right with, if you go back one, Isabel. So right with the backhoes, right there, right where the backhoe is. See the ledge that is scraped white? That's the ledge that we're getting out. That's the corner of the new stream bed. We weren't down low enough there. So they were hammering that today, trying to get that corner out, and then we're gonna fill in the rest of the basin and start construction.
You gotta bring that down 3-4 feet to the water level?
Yeah, that has to, no, that has to go down to the level of the bottom of the swale, which isn't as far as the water level there. But we probably have to go down another 3 or 4 feet. So we do have a large hammer on the site. That's the soft ledge in that area, not the hard ledge. So it takes maybe a couple days to get it.
Susan, did you have a question?
Just a question. You mentioned underground structures.
Yeah,
Could you just go over that real quick?
yeah, so that on the original plan, you'll see infiltrator units. They're
Okay.
big drainage units that go under the pavement to store the water. And then there's stone that also takes up volume underneath that. So that's what that is. I think that's along the edge of the area. That's the area that we're filled in with stone. That's along the edge of it, right, Isabel?
Yeah, so that'll be the stream bed.
Close to where the stream bed is gonna get built up, but that's probably the stream bed there has got to probably come up another 3 feet probably to where the stream bed's gonna be.
Yeah, sorry, could you go back a picture?
Are you going to be taking
Go back one more.
that banking down anymore? That's on.
So
the
that's-
right side of it?
Wait until,
So that's flowing from the right-hand corner to the left-hand side, right? And you're
Correct, it's
saying the
flowing.
stream is gonna be brought up
Yeah,
a
the
couple
stream will be-
feet, so there'll be more, but drop and maybe
Yeah, so
that.
we have to shape that. So that's gonna come up and then we'll shape a stream bed in there and that'll have plantings.
And it's not gonna leak out the side?
No, we're gonna
You're
line
gonna
that.
hold it up? I don't,
So we're having problems with the top section leaking out.
yeah.
So we're gonna line that with a liner.
What do you line it with?
No, we line it with like they have a basin liner. It's like a rubber thing. We can do it with clay, but we did the other one with clay and it's not all working. So,
Not me.
So John, I should say, Mr. Chairman, could the applicant speak to that ledge banking on the right-hand side of where the water is now?
yeah,
Is that the height of it, or is that coming down in order to gain that 3 foot that you're looking for?
no, so that back bank now is where it's gonna stay, except for that corner. But
Okay.
that'll be raised up and then the stream will be in front of that. So we had to take the ledge out so we could shape the ledge. You can't shape the stream, you can't do it in a ledge slope. And then that'll be cleaned up and it'll be left a 1-to-1 ledge. Those are the check dams and plunge pools that you saw last time with spillways coming down.
and there are flock box.
Flock
in the
blocks in
bottom?
every one of those. There's 4 flock blocks in most of them, 2 in a few. And there's flock blocks at the outfit where the stream comes down into the basin. Not quite sure. where that
So
is.
this is right, still on one of the check dams at the higher point, so the wattle's been destroyed.
Is that Waddle?
Yeah. Um,
It might have got pulled out. There was a lot of areas that we pulled out stuff to replace it with other things.
So here's the bordering vegetated wetland.
So this is the turbidity and the silt in the water that we were hearing about.
So that's downstream today?
This is today.
And is that right down at where Route 16 is?
Yeah, so this would be the culvert that then empties out into Lake Nipmuc.
That's a direct shot to the lake, right?
Yes.
Like almost submerged, maybe?
It goes to a drain manhole on the other side of the road and then a pipe out to the lake.
Right, but is,
Yeah, luckily,
Is it
luckily
still-
it's a
I
little
guess-
higher before the culvert. Was it flowing through the culvert today?
I
Was
can
it
go and
today?
look at that. That's the other side of the.
Yeah.
Chair, does the, can you ask the applicant if the flock blocks, does this have anything to do with the flock blocks? Because he said it was running clean the last time we were.
It was, as you get the melt coming that we had overnight, we've done everything we possibly can, get that fine silt out of there.
So
It's
the
just
flock blocks
impossible.
was not doing as well as you wanted them to do?
There's nothing else we can do. We're responsible for the procedure and doing the things, but we can't guarantee the outcome. All we can do is what God recommends and everybody recommends.
was
Like I said, we
useful.
have like
It sounds like
27,
a good solution.
what?
It sounded like a great
Well,
solution.
we have 27 rows of filter fabric before it even gets here.
Yeah,
So I don't know what to do. I'm at wit's end.
maybe
so-
not build this.
So
That
so-
may be there.
in the spring, we'll look at it, and if it has to be restored, we clean silt out of the basin on, out of a wetland on the other side. We did it with a vacuum truck. We suck it all up. And you fix it. But yeah, we're doing the best we can on site so that doesn't happen. But when you get a heavy melt or rain, it's going through everything. I started with one row of silt fence. I think there's areas that have 3 rows of silt fence, 2 things of wattles. We have filter fabric everywhere, flock box. I don't know anything else we can do.
Bob?
Isabella, have you gone on the other side of the road to see whether or not there is silt and runoff coming through into Lake Nipmuc?
There was,
Did you look at that today by chance?
I didn't look today just because it's private property. And so we've gone in December, we walked on the other side. So there was one day that I have evidence of a plume on that side. Yes. So I don't know if the SWIP can be also checked down there sometimes, but it's not on his property, so he can't. I don't know what you have access to.
That was after a 4 or 5 inch rainstorm. That was on right directly after that big rainstorm where everything held, but literally the water was so high, and that was before we kind of finalized the temporary basin we raised the outfall, the check dam at the temporary basin, and it was flowing over the top of the silt fence. So there was, I'm not gonna say there wasn't, we walked over there and we saw it, but it was a 5-inch rain event.
Now, is that when you had the back truck go in there and?
No, this was on the other side of the project when we first started. There was silt getting down into a wetland for years mostly from the cell phone. That was a dirt road, the cell phone tower.
Right.
So and we came.
Oh,
across
so you
the board,
were in that
guys
little
told,
cove.
yeah, that was DEP made us go
Right,
down
you were in
there.
the cove at that
And
point.
we took a vacuum truck. So if we have to do something like that here, we will. But on site, I just can't, I don't know what else to do. If the board or anybody has any recommendations, DEP was out there and had no other recommendations for me. They said, I don't know what to tell you.
Who else is
Like-
there besides DEP?
What?
Is there anyone else besides DEP?
The feds, the EPA, the EPA
Yeah,
could
the
come.
EPA. I don't think you want
And
that.
so
Doing out in Sutton with the solar field. They're making them build more silt settling basins. They had the luxury there where it's like farm fields, and as opposed to, it's hard building a settling pond on this site.
I have
but-
one more question for you.
You and somehow, I don't know, spray straw across, you gotta stop to the sediment coming. And whether it's still shoot flow or culvert, I don't know.
Well, this is getting tangential. Bob, I want to finish up the questions so we can get through the rest of the slides.
Okay.
And see the rest of the site walk.
oh, well, that's
That's
it.
pretty much it.
Yeah, that is it.
Okay, so you're up
That's
to
lots.
22.
And on the original drawings I saw, John, it shows that hill is coming down by 17 feet. Is that already been done or is that still gonna be done?
Where the road is?
Yeah,
So the road is down now. We've chipped the road down to subgrade and they're starting to fill it in with stone. So it was always presented that we would do a 3-to-1 slope on the sides, but if we hit ledge, it would be a 1-to-1 slope. to reduce disturbance,
So
basically.
everything on each side of that road now is 2 grade?
I believe so, yes.
Okay.
Yes, so we're not touching up high anymore.
I didn't know if you were kind of trying to shelf and,
No, and
And-
that's it. That's how it will be. Something else that was just discussed. Anyway,
Okay.
that's what.
So any further discussion about 4549 Uxbridge Road? So we have a motion to have work done on an EO, and we will be reviewing this again in 2 weeks. Okay, so you can keep sitting there. Is,
not along.
is,
Oh,
okay, so one of the questions that was raised is commissioner access to the site. I wanted to wait until we made a ruling on recusal, because if they were recusing, there's no necessity for them to have a site walk. But now that that's been resolved, I want to address the issue of commissioner access to a site. Isabella did a little research and I did as well. And our current understanding is that once a property is subject to an order of conditions, and as part of the OOC boilerplate, there appears to be a line that says that commissioners are granted the right to have access to parcel for exactly what we've been talking about. Because they're going to be voting on it, they want to be able to go on there and see what the conditions are. However, it is unclear, it does not appear that this is required for the other activities that might be governing specifically at ANRAD. It may be that a private citizen can say that they do not want commissioners on as part of an ANRAD hearing. But my sense of it is that the OOC, being a legal document that, gets recorded and whatnot, that changes the goalposts and it moves things around. So what I would ask is 2 things that will be going forward and that we could discuss it next meeting if necessary. If you can reach out to the property owner and see if they agree with this particular view, that they would be allowed to have reasonable access, not 24/7, where they would schedule and they could be escorted, but they would have access to review an existing order of conditions and other parcels subject to this kind of ruling. And if they are still they still wish to have that contested, then Isabella and I would work and prepare a response that says, no, here is why we feel that they have access. And then you refer the matter to town council again. So, yeah.
Yes, so I've given the board access, I think, except for Peter. And actually, Peter, you voted on this site originally. You made the motion to approve it at the meeting. You weren't banned from this.
I
site
didn't
originally.
recuse myself from this, and I
No, no,
participated
no.
until I was told
No,
I was, my presence
until-
wasn't wanted.
You gave me the letter, you've made your decision, so I'll
Well,
present that
There-
to
there-
Kevin.
I want to say these are 2 separate issues. The recusal is now final. I don't intend to discuss it further unless and until applicant's counsel decides to make another letter. I'm now changing the subject and saying I now want to discuss the prohibition not against recusal, but prohibition against access to the site.
And I don't believe that has ever happened. Every time you've called me, I've gained.
Yeah, I think,
My position is, my understanding is that Peter and Leah are allowed to go onto the site subject to an OOC, even if Kevin doesn't want them on there. That
Oh,
because
so-
there's
That's a legal matter. I can't speak to that. So
Okay.
I'm gonna tell,
okay,
Kevin will know what'll happen tonight.
okay,
You're gonna send him a letter, right? We're
Yes.
or town council will send him a formal letter to our lawyer or or
okay.
you'll send something to our lawyer and then he'll come back with something. I can't
Okay.
even go there. That's legal.
All
matter
right, so
that
you want to
I'm not
stay out of
privy
it.
to even speak about.
Okay. All right, I will follow up directly on that issue. Okay, the other issue that John Neidart sorry, I'm mixing up names. The Meehan Group is involved with is 134 North Avenue. So we will now move to agenda item 5, review status of site and take any action required. And the history with this is in 2020, I think, there was a determination made that parts of the lot were not subject to review by the commission. A siltation fence and barrier was put in at what was then assumed to be the delineation. There was no official review by the Concom at that time because a negative determination was made at that time. Since then, there are now been concerns raised as to whether there are parts of the lot which are subject to the Wetlands Protection Act and the buffers in the Mendon bylaws in the buffer zone. So the conversations that we have had with the site manager for acting site manager, maybe, the expectation is that there will be the wetlands have been flagged and there will be a site plan made up with and then an ANRAD coming before us in a couple of weeks. Is that something that or he's got, no, he looks like he's
Oh, he's
signed off.
gone.
Okay.
Yeah, so yes, we have had, we've had though. So I'm gonna just can I pass this out to the board? I have some
Go right
maps
ahead.
between 2016
Yep.
and 2018 of the satellite imagery. The pond has grown, well,
Beavers.
although he lives on it, a couple feet and it's raised up a couple feet in elevation. So the pond has been from not on our property to on our property now. But you know what, let me give you both of them. That's a 2016 and
So that's the old one?
yeah, that's the old one. This is 2021. You can see where the pond is now. So we have had the new wetland line flag. It was located. It's been plotted. We have to have an INRAD files. Because we don't want it coming up anymore, basically. And there was a shed. Well, it's a large shed. It was 14 by 28. That was moved from one point on the lot that was along the butter in the front's backyard, just off the 20-foot setback. They were complaining about the roof line. It was moved to the middle of the lawn area. When Carl called me and asked me about it, I pulled the tape from where the water line is now, like 72 feet away. So after he called me, I didn't want a problem. We jacked it up, put wooden runners down across the lawn, and we rolled it back out of the buffer. So it's currently out of the buffer. I will be back in front of the board with an NOI to either put it back where it is or to remove the concrete pad that's there. The concrete pad was put in when we were doing the lawn and the grass. There was no disturbance of any ground moving the shed. So we'll file, we're gonna come in front of the board with an ANRAD to lock the line in, and then we'll see where we are with work that we've done compared to the old wetland.
How old is the newest picture?
2021.
Yeah.
Okay.
There's now a pool
So-
and some other things.
Yeah, there's a pool. Yeah, so I'll do an as-built and I'll come in with an as-built with a new one.
Okay.
Excuse me, Mr. Chair, if I could hear you. So this is the old house.
Yes.
This was the new construction.
Correct.
Yes.
Now this is 2021.
Yes.
The pool is somewhere
Yeah,
here,
it's outside of the 100-foot buffer.
right, but somewhere here.
Yes, yeah.
And then this shack, which is now 30 by 40, what's
No,
that?
it's 20 by 28. So it's put right about here. And then,
Was put
then I
here.
slid it back over here, away from the left.
And then so what's this new building that's?
So that's a horse barn in this front corner that's outside of the buffer also.
Well, that was my concern because I don't know what the dimensions here, but that is for sure, that's water, right? That's a
Yeah.
pond.
It's 106 feet outside. It's already been located and put on a plan.
Okay, well, it's, doesn't look closer. Drive by.
The other feature on the property is 2 retaining walls and a chain link fence.
Correct. Those were put at the top of the slope where this, kind of where the silt fence was put.
And one of the questions is, when they were installed, were they 100 feet away, and are they within 100 feet now because the
They
beavers?
definitely are now.
So we will expect to review that on the plan. And we may end up rubber stamping and saying, yep, beavers, let us know if you're doing anything further with the wall in the future. So we will discuss that matter when it
Yes.
comes up.
Sorry. Once we have that locked in, then we'll file for any work that was done.
Okay. And status of building permits for there was a building permit for the very large addition. There was a building permit for the pool and the electrical work going out to the pool. There was not building permits for the other two new outbuildings. Is that in progress?
They have all been into the building department as of today.
Okay, so
Question.
so let me finish that. So Isabella and I will be able to review the building permits, and on one of them on both of them, I'm going to recommend that we have a hold pending the ANRAD, where you come in and say, nope, 106 feet, or yep, 194 feet, and here's, so on and so forth.
There's actually 3 buildings.
Okay, well,
So I put in for 3 buildings.
okay,
So the site was so I put in the building permits for the original, just so you know, the
Yeah.
original house, the big addition and the pool, and then I'm not in charge of the site anymore. There's another
just this week.
to read. No, beginning in the spring. And he just assumed that I had put in building permits for all because we have an overall site plan showing where all the buildings were. He did. So he's out with a family death for the week. His father-in-law passed away. So I put in all the permits today.
Okay, Bob?
Has the beaver problem been remedied?
I can answer that.
You know,
The beavers were tremendously busy and active. They had their beaver lodge somewhere around here. However, I was out on the ice. This is let's see, this is my property here. So I own this stretch. So nope, I take that back. I own this stretch. Sorry, this is the neighbor.
Once you're off the wrong.
Yep. So Beaver Lodge was up around here someplace. And it is now inactive. It's completely frozen over. No beavers are there. And there's been no beavers not taking trees down the past year.
But Mr. Chair, there's a dam that controls that pond, right?
And the beavers completely blocked it up.
Well, they blocked the control to that dam. They didn't make the dam a whole lot higher, I bet, or how much
No,
higher would
no.
they have made it?
Can you bring up the Mass GIS for this so I can show where things are?
That's my question. Are they gonna keep raising that dam?
That there's a natural pond there, because it shows on all the assessor's maps that it shows very clearly there's a pond there.
School was built.
Where's the dam?
So,
Right there, yeah.
There is a 4 feet by 8 feet concrete block with a pipe
there's a real
underneath
dam,
going
so-
through.
With
What
a-
happened is the beavers built their dam right here. And they completely raised the water level up before it got to the pipe that would have allowed the water to drain out. And they completely blocked all drainage there. In addition to knocking down trees all along the edges. What happened with Kevin's property is I have a high bank, so I only lost like about 2 or 3 feet. He had a much shallower slope, so when the water level went up 2 feet, he had like a 4 or 5 to 1 slope, and he lost a whole lot more square footage. So the other thing that we will be discussing with the ANRAD is this area here is on the USGS survey maps from like 40 years ago. However, I believe what you were talking about is you go back and you look at the aerial photographs, and I remember driving by here, this was not wet, that this had been turned into fields. Can you click on the layer for one of the layers. Yeah, if you put on 2021 aerial imagery. No, not that one. Take that one off. We want to go to base map.
So it could have been filled circa 1960, you don't know. Or
If you look here, this is fields, this is grass, this is not wetlands. So this area here was pretty dry. And since we didn't do a full-blown assessment to year 2020 when the house was being done, we weren't able to officially say that, but we can retroactively look at it. Can you turn the base map off and scroll out again?
Which one is it normally?
Scroll out a whole lot more. Yeah,
Uh,
now push it up. What happens is here's Misco Hill. Water runs down this way, and this is where the Misco Springs thing was with but all of the water that comes down this way flows into here. And then it either goes down here or it came to here. This pond here is the headwater of Muddy Brook. What happens is it starts in here, it flows into a second pond here on the other side, and then it flows on down. So what happened is there was probably a long time ago, this was an active channel, but this area has been dry pretty much since. You can see the contour lines. There was an area coming in here.
So the question is, does the road is usually the high spot and then it crowns both ways, but whether this might have, you're saying historically might have flown from south to north. And then now it's development.
It hasn't done it in at least 10 years.
And it fit, yeah.
So
Find out.
that's something that we would be able to review when we get the official NRAD
So
thing coming in.
yeah, so that is also the low point in the road right in front of there.
Yeah.
And there's been drainage put in now where that used to puddle across the road that ties into the catch basin. So that doesn't.
Gets it
puddle.
out that way.
Yeah, it doesn't puddle there. So that could have been a contributing factor to it.
Yeah, and all the sand that was put on that road over the years, it adds up, right? It's. Who knows?
Okay, so any further discussion about 134 North? And do you expect to be back in 2 weeks or 4 weeks?
Yeah, you gotta give me, gotta get the consultants times I have to have the survey,
Okay.
plan, dot it out. Yeah, you gotta give me a little time. I know everybody thinks that stuff just drops from the sky, but all the consultants are 4 to 6 weeks out.
Okay.
Like I ask favors a lot to get stuff done. Best I can to get back.
Okay, we have no one here, so thanks for coming. We'll see you in
Thank
2 weeks. We'll put you on the
Be in
phone
2 weeks.
again in 2
Oh, 2
weeks.
weeks.
Okay, so we have no one else in the building. Are there people on the Zoom call who are here for specific agenda items? AJ and Christine, I believe they would be here for the review of 23 Cape.
That's
Bruce?
correct, Carl.
Okay, so are you representing them for that? Are you here on for that as well?
We're just here to listen in to the review discussion that was planned for 23 Cape, that's all.
Oh, okay, well, since you get paid, we'll move on to that one next.
No, it's the neighbors, AJ and
Yeah,
Christine.
we're the abutters.
Oh,
Carl.
okay, right. Okay. Oh, okay,
You see.
That's- okay.
Thought it was Tom.
okay, so Tom isn't here anymore. Okay, so Lawrence C., are you here for a specific agenda item?
I am here just to hear about 23K.
Okay, and the third one is Bruce H. Are you here for trees?
I'm here to listen about 23 Cape Road.
Oh, okay, well, then that's what we'll talk about next. So we will now move to agenda item 6, 23 Cape Road, review discussion with town planner and junior town planner on January 17th and take any action required. Isabella?
Yeah, Carl and I met with both town planner and junior town planner, and they provided us with documentation for the soccer field, which was reviewed by the town's Graves Engineering, their town's engineer. And so they've looked at the pavement and they think the swales are functioning well. And their response is that the soccer field is kind of closed. So any response to stormwater runoff, that is all private matters and not jurisdiction of planning board or Concom.
Hold on a sec. One thing we discussed was snow removal, that they may be depositing snow piles in one of the swales that would be interfering with runoff. Did they get a follow-up on that as to where they were putting snow there, right?
Not that I haven't heard anything about
Okay.
the snow, no.
Okay, so Peter?
That they have snow removal practices that they are using on where they're managing their snow for their stormwater runoff, but that's not the scope of Concom.
Right. Well, yeah, okay.
Two questions. One is town planner, assistant town planner. We have such
That, yes,
capacity since when?
the town planner is Jack McLeland, and then
Okay.
Dylan Lindholm is the junior town planner.
And they're
she's-
full-time, part-time?
Dylan is based in Mendon, but also does work for Uxbridge and Millville. And she's junior town planner, so she works on planning board and zoning board of appeals.
And then just specifically on that item, because 2 years ago, I had put in a call to our circuit rider, asking about how we should do something, to write something. And I mentioned the issue of the snow plowing in the drainage. And that was a hot button item for her. She wanted us to know that that's probably a concern, having that rubber stuff get into the riprap. It's not a good thing. It's not a good thing for salt or coarse gravels to get in there, but at least gravel is better than something that never goes away. So I don't know. So I think there is a legitimate reason that the Concom would have, maybe because of the quality of the water, but I think it's something that DEP has highlighted, that these systems are problematic. And no one thinks about snow removal, right? It thinks it just goes away, but it's.
Would that be an O&M concern?
Yeah, and they might say, I don't know, O&M is going to say it has to be swept or something or blown. I'm not sure. I'm not familiar. It should be, but I don't know. But you might want to follow through with DEP, or I don't know if we bring that into the mix, because there are other sites, right? The other issue was, yes, it's done, but my understanding, I didn't really want to dredge it up, but they changed from an asphalt parking from,
Yes.
which I'm sure would have affected.
That was discussed. Can you summarize that discussion?
Yeah, there's documentation of the planning board having their engineer peer review it. And so that's what I've received.
That they reviewed upgrading it to a paving it at some point.
Yeah.
And it was approved.
And where does all the stormwater go? It goes sheet flow now?
Yeah, I mean, it's
It
going
probably
in,
didn't
they're
change much between
swales.
Packed gravel and asphalt. It's not gonna be a whole lot different, but you would think it'd be a little different.
Oh, absolutely. It's gonna move a lot faster.
Yeah, I mean, there are swales on the site for managing their stormwater around the asphalt. And so those were all said that they were all in good condition and cited appropriately.
So that brings up a question. So the swales on either side of that, mostly to the side, I think, of the Gasco site, for the swales for the sheet flow that runs into those swales, where does the end swale go to? Does it go to a retention pond?
Yes,
It does. On site?
I thought that went down the side.
there is
The site.
well, it goes down to the side, but at the
It does
bottom,
have
they have a
that.
detention.
This is an interesting conversation, but I'm going to cut it off because it's not jurisdictional for Conservation Commission. It is jurisdictional for Planning Board. And the response that the town planner on behalf of the planning board and talked with the planning board members and with people at the soccer field. And their response is that they do not believe that they currently have a stormwater problem and that that if people have an issue with stormwater, it should be dealt with privately and not through the town. Is that a fair summary?
Privately.
That's
Sure.
my understanding.
I can appreciate that, but I also think that that was the general intent of what we had this discussion with Abe. Finally, it got, I think we all agreed that those three large lots together have to be analyzed together because the drainage comes down and over. So yes, it's between three different parties. And yes, it's not necessarily the town because we don't want to be sued or anything. So I can understand the apprehension, but and it's not such a big site that an engineer, someone's got to pay for it, but someone could study it and it's part and parcel to all three. And so I don't know, yeah, you
Yes.
don't want to revisit.
We should shortly have a contact with a stormwater management person at the solar farm. Once we have that contact, they will be reviewing their flow into the wetlands. We will also ask them about stormwater flow into the southern border, which is impacting people on Edmonds Road. So we are still planning on doing that. And at that point, as the Concom, we would say, if you are getting stormwater from upstill, speak with the planning board and with the owners of those parcels. And at that point, that's as far as our jurisdiction ends at this point. We can go and lobby with the planning board. We can talk to Jason, our select board liaison, that we wish that but the planning board is an independent elected board. They're not appointed by the select board the way we are.
No, and
I would-
unfortunately, our job would be to get at it's Abe's land that is coming off of, whether it's historic. And so we got to squeeze Abe. And so then Abe's got to squeeze
Yes.
the person upstream of them to say, hey, it's not all my fault. There's also, yeah, I understand. That's unfortunate. It's got to be that way.
I would also add that planning board is in charge of the stormwater bylaw. So it's, yeah.
And we've let them know that the DEP is updating their stormwater regulations.
And there's going to be a lot more work for Concom because with that new interests involved, there's a lot more jurisdictional review.
Yes. So are there people on the Teams call who wish to comment on this matter?
Yes,
Yep.
Carl, AJ Charbonneau, 14 Talbot Farm.
Yep.
Yeah, so as I listen to this, naturally, I'm thinking silt is still finding its way into the wetlands, one, based on this runoff. And then I keep thinking about the Wetlands Act that talks about compounding impact onto the wetlands. At what point is there a threshold that's passed where the Conservation Commission says there's compounding impact? And then that starts to feature in your decisions for things like development on 23 Cape. I struggle to try and square that circle. Like,
Well,
what is that threshold?
We've already, the site walks that we conducted in December and early January, the siltation that is coming now is not coming from 23 Cape Road. We're seeing clear flow of stormwater flowing down. And we also saw clear flow coming out of the off of the solar farm. As her hours allow, Isabella is attempting to contact people north of 23 Cape Road to talk to them about whether silt is flowing from their properties into the creek, which is then flowing down into further south in the stream.
Mr.
Right.
Chair, couldn't it be some is resuspended sediments from the very bottom of 23 Cape? Whoever owns the wetland there. So I don't know whether it goes off of his land, but it's stuff that got deposited there 2 years ago.
Yes,
or
and
3 years ago.
the agreement that we have with Abe is Mike Dean will be coming before us with a mitigation plan that would be executed during the summer, during the dry season, where in some places it's up to 2 inches thick, and they will come up with a plan to safely go in and clean it out. That way we would know that would solve the problem and come up with the restoration plan. And that way we would know that the silt that's flowing into the creek isn't just this 2 inches worth of accumulation getting flooded up and continuing to move. And we'd be better able to monitor if there's new silt flowing into the wetlands.
Okay.
So,
Okay.
what was
Appreciate
the
that, Carl.
what was the technical word that you used about a threshold?
Compounding impact.
Compounding. Okay, I'm not familiar. I don't know the WPA well enough to know what that means. Isabella, are you familiar with it, or would you be able to figure out what that means?
I can work with the state circuit rider and find out what would be the threshold for compounded interest.
Okay,
But
and if that
Sorry,
allows,
it was cumulative impact, and that's what I'm really getting at is
okay,
at one time, the soccer field was developed. It changed the hydrology of the area. Then the solar field was developed. It changed the hydrology of the area. Now we're proposing putting in a warehouse, which is again, change the hydrology of the area. We see some of our fellow residents coming here and pleading with the commission because now their backyards are turning into wetlands. That is exactly the issue we have
Yes.
been talking about, being abutters to this 23 Cape Road development. And that's our big concern, Carl. That's all this is.
Yep.
And that's when I
Well-
say cumulative impact. At what point does that get considered? What is the threshold? When does it get crossed? When do we say no to these types of things? That's what I don't understand.
okay, the current, we approved a order of conditions NOI last year, I think April, May. So if there is another plan, because that one falls through and another developer comes in, then we would be able to address those concerns, especially now that I have a staffer who can dig into the teeth of those particular technical details. If this current OOC expires, if there's no work done on the site for 3 years, they would have to come back with a new one or request an extension. If they requested an extension, we would certainly go and look at cumulative impact and the amount of rain that's happened in the past 6 months and what would be happening in the next 2.5 years, to ask them to see whether we would ask them to revisit or change that plan. Or there may be a new owner who comes up with a new project and then they would have a completely new set of plan and request, and we would be able to address cumulative impact with that.
Okay, appreciate it. Thank you.
All right. Anything else? Okay, so we've done that one and that one. So we're an hour and a half in. Now we can start zooming our way through the rest of the stuff. All right. I'll do correspondence first. Tree removal inquiry, 75B Maury Street, voicemail. Isabella?
I still haven't had an update from them.
Gonna get to it.
But
Okay.
yeah.
All right. Next correspondence, Massachusetts Society of Municipal Conservation Professionals.
Yeah, I joined the MSMCP. Sorry, I joined the MSMCP, so now we can use the Google Forum, which provides a lot of insight onto how people deal with trail restoration and updates on using Viewpoint, or using Viewpoint OpenGov, which is the platform that electrical permits and building permits go through. And so there's other towns that are starting to do their NOIs and everything goes through that permitting process. So this is a resource for us to connect with other conservation professionals.
Okay. Agenda item number 4, 6 Crestview Drive, review request from Albert Fassbender about removing 6 pine trees and take any action required.
I walked the site today. The applicant's concerned on the health of the trees. He marked them for me. You can see here's the house is here, and then there are the old pine trees. And so the concern that the arborist presented to the homeowners that this culvert ditch, which is a stormwater culvert ditch, the trees are abutting it. And so I'm not going to tell a homeowner not to cut trees down. And so I don't know how the commission typically responds to tree removal inquiries. If we ask that they only leave it at 10 feet or if they leave the stumps and keep all heavy machinery off of the site.
Does he want a bigger stormwater drain there? Because as soon as he gets rid of all those trees.
Well, there's no problem with him taking down the trees.
Here, let
Right.
me clarify from my phone conversations with him. It is not currently flagged as a wetlands. It is not listed as an intermittent stream.
That's not an intermittent stream.
It is not on our, it is not as such on the current maps. The concern of one of the people he had coming out giving him an estimate said, in his opinion, it was something he wanted the Conservation Commission to review before he gave an estimate. So the question before us is, do we consider that even though there's nothing on here, it's just a regular,
Well, wait, a minute, there's a culvert and so there's a stream.
Isabella, when you.
Now see,
But it comes, the other side of the road has it marked.
So,
This is marked stormwater
yeah,
outfall.
it's an outflow, the storm, but
Did you see any vegetation that would suggest wetlands?
this
I mean-
is a question she'll be better able to answer after she finishes her training.
I gotta believe there's a wetland on the other side of that somewhere that's directly connected to. But in
Yeah.
any event, he's got the trees marked. Why can't he cut down the pine trees? No grubbing, no stumping. He's not gonna
Well,
damage the.
That is,
That's the question at hand right
Well,
now.
he is asking us to put something in writing that he can give to the tree removal person to let the tree remover doesn't want to get yelled at by us for removing something in a
I think
wetland.
that's good.
So yes, I'm glad that he reached out to us. So the question is, my recommendation is that we say that it's a drainage ditch. It's upstream of anything, so it's not something that the Mendon bylaws would be concerned with. And therefore, we would write something to the effect of, yeah, go ahead and remove the trees and well, you can grind them down, but don't rub the roots up. That's what we usually say.
Yeah.
And in terms of heavy machinery, it's not a buffer zone, but you should be sensitive to the fact that you really probably don't want to mess up the existing drainage dish or you'll have a bigger problem.
No, that culvert, that Crestview, that's not that old subdivision. That looked like an old culvert.
So is it, what I would ask if people disagree with that, we can continue talking. If there's no objection, I'd entertain a motion to find this make a negative determination and authorize Isabella to write something up for.
Yeah,
the
we got
homeowner.
bigger fish to fry.
Okay,
Well, yeah, I guess that just brings me back just on how I should respond to tree inquiries because some towns,
They're all gonna be different. But
they're all. Yeah, so then do we want a threshold of 5 trees or more would need an RDA or you can, some towns write just tree removal inquiry form so that all the information is presented to the commission for the time of the meeting.
I want to punt that particular conversation until you have some free time to work on it.
And our rule of thumb is then if it's safety concern anywhere near the house, if the
Yeah.
homeowner wants to take it down because he's afraid of branches, that's okay. If it's aesthetics or because they want a view of the lake
Yes,
in the buffer, no, that's.
in this
something
case,
different.
those trees are large enough that they would endanger the side of the houses kids sleep on.
The,
That's the reason.
Gotta love a pine.
what I've heard and listened to,
They look like St.
Is-
Peter, though.
Yeah, they might be
tree
good.
removal is okay. If
On George Street.
you don't bring heavy equipment
Right.
in and you don't bring anything to rip the stumps out of the ground, you can grind them even with the ground.
Yeah.
But you can't pull them out of the ground.
Yes, the reason for having a threshold is there's at some point, if someone wants to go into a wetlands and take out a couple trees, that's okay. If they want to do some serious logging, we would ask them to have a forestry plan. But in this case, he has 6 trees that are, definitely a safety hazard. So do I have a motion to find this a negative determination of applicability?
So moved.
I second.
Okay, moved by Peter, seconded by Leah. Any discussion? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Tim, are you still there?
He left.
Okay, so we still have a quorum.
So
All
the
right.
question is, do we want to put that in there that, no removing of the stump, you can grind them, but not remove the stumps?
Yes, that's the usual
So that's what Isabella needs to know. though,
Well-
isn't it?
we're finding that it's not really a wetlands. So we can provide that as an advisory opinion, but it's up to the homeowner and the tree person to decide how they want to remove the trees as they are a safety issue.
Unless it's deemed that is wetland soils.
Well, and Isabella went out and it's a drainage ditch.
Okay. Like I said, my whole goal on this is to
Yep.
make it fair and even for everybody.
Yes. All right,
Isabella, if there's any questions like that, I'm happy to go on site walks because I can identify, certain things.
yes. Between you identifying plants and Susan identifying rocks, it's an education going between. All right,
Easily
I know where the
distracted.
water table is.
Susan's just like me too. Like she sees a rock and she's like, I see a plant.
her best friend. Okay. Moving on, agenda item number 7, 3 Morrison Drive, review status of site and take any action required.
It's, it's 5 Morrison's Drive.
Is this the one where he said there was like stuff leaking into his yard and?
This is the one where the homeowner complained, but there's approved plans with an NOI and it's outside of the 100-foot buffer.
Yeah,
It's
it
for
didn't
the
look like
storage
it was-
containers by the fire and the school buses. And so everything's, once I found it all, it's all there. And so this is the site. Yeah, so it's just that work commenced,
What are they building there?
3 storage units, and this was
Tight
approved.
site. Wow.
Yeah, and so here's the, yeah.
How much of imperviousness? It's like almost the whole thing is.
Yeah, so this was approved, and these are things where I think the bigger sites could start to have the plans on the website so that people look on the website before they call or come to a meeting
There you go.
saying what happened.
Transparent. It would
Right.
make a whole lot of
Yeah, that's-
sense.
So this went to the planning board but didn't come before Concom?
No, these are Concom approved plans. We
Oh,
just
okay.
didn't have them in the right spot.
Okay.
So it's not,
When did they get approved?
yeah,
Okay, before, okay, so I don't know anything.
it's like back,
I went to a bunch
Pretty
of
lo-
planning board meetings on that.
Okay.
yeah, I can zoom into the date.
Is that our cooties?
July 26, 2021. But the order of conditions is so
what
9,
should the
9/22,
homeowner do
22, so a year and a half ago.
There's nothing we can do then, because it's not jurisdictional.
I mean,
So
we'll
he's gonna have
start doing, we can start doing site walks as we want to, but yeah, so I have to reply to the homeowner, but the neighbor, a butter.
Okay, so there is an order of conditions, so we can reach out to the property owner at 5 or 3, asking for a site walk because we have a complaint from an abutter. Is that what the next step would be?
Yeah,
There should be a sign up, right? EP number.
there should be. Yeah. So getting that confirmed as well.
Any work is being done, the siltation should be in and they should give us a call, right? That's.
All right, so so the action is, we'll hear back on this in 2 weeks after Isabella finds some time in her busy schedule to work on that. Okay, moving on to agenda item number 8, 13 Bellingham Street, review status of site and take any action required.
Yeah, the site or they hired an engineer who has contacted me. They are gonna start drafting the after the fact application. So that'll come before us once that's prepared.
Did they ever get any hay or straw in that gully?
I-
Because that's not good.
I drove by, there was
I
nothing.
mean, that was the least thing. We're
Nothing.
being nice, not asking them to,
There was nothing.
in this time of year, putting up stuff, but to get a hay bale, it doesn't take much. It doesn't take a engineer plan to get a hay bale and stuff it in that gully, because it's just gonna continue, right? It's
Yes,
already-
this is where, again, should ask if I should issue an enforcement order to keep it open. Because having enforcement orders open, keep people on their toes and have it in writing when we want things done by.
It would be, or also
Just call, I can,
give him a phone call, because he kind of said he would, or I was very adamant that there wasn't a whole lot necessary, but at least get a.
yeah, I wrote it,
Gully.
it's in writing to the site engineer or the engineer, but I can,
Right,
follow
and I'm
up
glad he's
again.
hired an engineer and he's making progress, and that's a good thing, but he should get something down.
Is there gonna
Not going.
be, in the site plans, do we require that there's some kind of cleanup of the wetlands or something like that?
When we actually get something presented to us, that is something we will end up discussing.
Okay.
And the longer the property owner waits to put barriers in place, the bigger the cleanup is going to be. So my proposal here would be that when you contact the engineer, say that if there is no action taken in terms of temporary barriers, we will issue an EO. And we would do that if there's nothing, we're going to review status of this in 2 weeks. If there's continues to be no activity, then we would issue an EO, and you could let the site engineer say it's going to happen if you don't respond.
Stopping actions.
Yeah. Specifically that there was an agreement during a verbal agreement during the meeting that they would at least put in some preliminary,
Some hay.
some barriers.
To mitigate the runoff into the
Like
wetlands.
gully erosion.
So either they do that,
From the tree that
they respond why they're not doing it, or they get an EO.
that was in the wetlands,
That
where
makes
the
sense?
flags were.
Okay. Agenda item 9, conservation trail activity. We had 2 correspondences coming in talking about trails. So I took the Bog Bridge agenda item and I'm now grouping it under a general conservation trail activity. This is where the Conservation Commission
Nice.
actually starts doing fun
Good things.
conservation stuff
Yes.
instead of beating up on
Can I be the
construction
head
sites.
person for this? I'd rather do that.
So the first conservation trail activity, Leah, continue discussion on Bog Bridge. What's the status?
I think we're in the process of just getting the signs. They've done the stepping stones, and in the spring, we can always revisit whether we need to get new plans for a bridge.
And do the whole public hearing thing.
Yeah, that won't get flagged. Yeah.
Okay. Second, review email from Kevin Sylvia, chapter president of the Blackstone Valley New England Mountain Bike Association. And we also got a request from Don Mangano, Trails Chair of the Appalachian Mountain Club of Worcester, about conducting a survey on conservation land to gauge interest in trail maintenance and restoration.
yeah, I forward both of these on to Ann Mazar as land use committee chair. And so these are kind of getting into the bigger picture of an agent position, if they're going to be a contact person for the people who are designated as trail stewards and if we're gonna start collaborating with nonprofits on trail maintenance and everything. And so for the Blackstone Valley, the chapter president asked to come to either a meeting or have a meeting with the agent. They haven't replied back, but they just want to introduce themselves and better understand how the Concom administers trail restoration. And then the Appalachian Mountain Club is doing surveys in all the neighboring or the Worcester County towns. They're posting, they want to do surveys on all the trailheads to have user feedback on what they'd want to see for updates in the trail. And so I said, you can drop off the draft that I can give here and to the land use committee before we post them, just to get permission.
So Leah has volunteered to get involved in conservation trail activity. Are there other commissioners who want to be brought into the loop as Isabella gets more information on these 3 items? Okay.
I'm close. It's like I can walk there.
Okay, when they say conducting a survey, do they mean a piece of paper or going out onto the?
He's gonna laminate QR codes that would bring them to a survey.
Okay. All right, agenda item 10, conservation restriction activity. We have 2, discuss budget for the 43 Quistit Road and take any action required.
I'm still not sure what line item it would come out of, but I'm working on it.
Okay, and you expect to meet with town treasurer in the next 2 weeks to clarify this?
Yeah, the finance director I have a meeting with next Thursday.
Okay,
So we've got a price and we approved it. Are they going ahead and doing the work or we have to wait to figure out? what line
Yeah,
item?
they're on hold until
Hold.
we decide where the budget line comes
yeah,
out of.
we said we'll spend the money. Now we have to talk to the person who controls the purse about which
Yeah.
pocket of the purse it comes from. All right,
Well-
second one, update on referral for Gaskell CR.
Yeah, I circled back on that and it's now in town councils and they're reviewing it. So
We had to nudge the select board to get it moved over. Okay. And the expectation is that after town council review, the select board will take up the matter. And at that meeting, we may be asked to go and make recommendations verbally to the select board and participate in their conversations on it. Okay. Agenda item 11, Sylvan Springs monitoring, review site inspection report from January 11th, 2024 and take any action required.
yeah, so Susan and I both participated. They had done a lot of work to clean out the sediment washout that was recorded in these pictures. And so I think it looked much better than it had the previous weeks. And they've also gone back around the whole site and hung up the wetland flagging and added new silt areas and wattles. So I think they've done the preventative measures that they needed to.
What's the status of the Upton enforcement order?
I think it's just open so that they they stay in compliance.
Is Mary happy with what they're doing on on Mendon land?
Mary wasn't at the sidewalk, so.
Okay. And when the next site walk is scheduled, then the usual notice will go out and people can see if they want to go as well. All right, agenda item 12, Lake Nipmuc Task Force. Here update from Bob Sweet, including about installing water level gauge, median high water level, and take any action. Have you had a meeting yet?
The meeting is scheduled for the 30th. I believe there's going to be a good showing. I believe that Isabella, you're going to be there as well, right?
Yeah.
Will you have any information about the water gauges? We were talking about monitored ones as opposed to secured ones.
Mhm.
Were you able to get any information on that?
Yeah, I have, Dan Byer and I met, so we went over kind of what devices we'd want. So we both are prepared to speak on that. Yeah.
So we'll look forward to hearing what happens at that meeting. All right, agenda item 13, review activities, building permit activities since last meeting. First one, COM 2312, 149 Uxbridge Road. I believe this one is this one officially dead? Have they said this never should, has this been canceled and never should have been a building permit request? Or is there some other status of that?
I haven't released the hold just because John Erickson hasn't confirmed anything.
Okay, so we'll wait for John to decide what's up with that. He does exist. I got him to respond on the,
You have to use red writing or something like that.
I had to, he did get a response about 134 North Avenue of it finally. All right, second one, RES 23-338, 17 Thayer Road, build a greenhouse and shed on hold as it may be jurisdictional. Again, we'd be waiting for a response from the applicant.
Yep.
All right, next agenda item number 14. You can now go and review minutes from January 11th, 2024. Yay, up-to-date minutes. I already went through them and reviewed them earlier. Anybody else have corrections or other things they wish to have changed to them?
I saw one spelling error, but you might have fixed it. It was like two instead of the or something like, it was a preposition, you know what I mean? Nothing major.
Okay, I'll entertain a motion to approve.
So move.
Peter,
Second.
Peter moves up. Bob got in with the
He
second,
beat
so
me.
beat you out. Okay, all in favor?
I,
Opposed? Passes unanimously. And item 15, items not reasonably anticipated. Could you refresh my memory, or there was something that I said that we were going to stick in this slot, or did we do that already?
Not my.
Oh, you're right, I did that. That was the lawyer letter. We already did that. Okay. Now, the last item is on the agenda is executive session, but after further review, it turns out we don't need to do executive session. The goal here is subject to after a meeting that I had with the town HR representative and the town administrator, we were discussing increasing Isabella's hours. This is why I was sort of joking about her freeing up time in her calendar. The goal is to explore whether to upgrade her status from part-time to full-time. You had something about why this doesn't need to be an executive session.
Yeah, so I met again with the finance director, HR, and town administrator, and we went over it again. It doesn't have to be executive session because it's not a bargaining on me getting more hours or more money. This is more, does the commission believe the conservation agent position should be a 20, 30, 40 hour a week job?
Okay, so it's not you that we're talking about, the position.
It's not me. So we're discussing, if you think that, then I'm asking 4 more hours because I can't get to everything. I haven't walked all of Cape Road, and it comes up that I'm not getting everything done in the 18 hours. And there's also the backlog of time and stuff hasn't been done with DEP, and there's just a lot of paperwork on my desk to get through. And so if I want to get all the Wetland Protection Act stuff done and the admin stuff done, I can't do it in 18 hours. And I'm hitting every other week. When I have meetings, I'm hitting 30, 40 hours anyways, because I'm not showing up to a meeting unprepared. But the other week, the off week, I'm turning my computer off because I don't want to work over 18 hours and I'm not responding to things in time. And so everyone has a copy kind of the calculations. So if, depending on what people think the position should be, we'd either I'm going to go $700 over budget being at 18 hours until the fiscal year June 30th. And so this could be taken out from my analysis of the budget is that we're gonna have, after spending in the contract services, we've spent about 1,400 for beavers, and we will spend 4,900 on Lake Nipmuc. And so leftover in the consultant services would be $10,000. And so if I were to increase on the high end to 30 hours a week, we'd be $8,000 over. And so we would be covered in the $10,000 unless there's other funds or other other expenses that I'm not aware of. So that's a possibility if it wants to stay in the general fund. The other thing is that the Concom wetland wrap account is the Wetland Protection Act filing fees. That's at $42,000, and that can be used for salaries, training, travel, anything related directly to the Wetland Protection Act. So it couldn't be used for me to go, say, do trail maintenance, or it wouldn't be used for me to do other things, but those extra hours could come from there. And so I'm proposing that the board discuss what they want out of my position long-term. If they want me to continue doing all of this work, then this would be out of the budget for what we have or using the revolving accounts. And then for next fiscal year, I would present to the finance committee, or Carl would present to the finance committee, depending on how that process goes. And it would be on the town warrant on making this a full-time position. And the long term in the conservation agent, there are other funding things rather than have it all come out of the general fund. There's some talk of Mendon being green communities where I would be, the position could be a joint sustainability position. There's also other, you know, as we see with the junior town planner, they're doing 15 hours in other towns, 15 hours in Millville, 15 hours in Uxbridge. So there's a lot of different ways my position could be set up for next year. But so the immediate question of, do you want to use the budget to give the agent position more hours up until June 30th? You would say that you approve the budget being used in that way, and then select board would vote on it on February 7th.
So we are not going to discuss anything that will happen after July 1st, because that's the next fiscal year. The hope is that town meeting will approve a 40-hour-a-week agent position at that time. So we now have to address the fact that she's built up a whole lot of comp time that she's not able to take, as in addition to still being behind. So if I hear there's $10,000 that we can safely take out of contract services and still leave a buffer. We also have the RAP fund, which is 40 something.
$42,000. That's the Wetland Protection Act fund.
Right. We don't want to drain that one, but because
But using it up until June 30th would only be $8,000. So there would still be $36,000 in the account.
I'd rather take it out of that one than the other one. Why would you not want to take it out of the RAP fund? Because that slowly replenishes. I'm not sure where that other stuff came from.
So the contract services,
Which is going.
contract services is use it or lose it.
yeah, so that's
Fund we get to carry over to next year.
Okay, well, there you
but
go.
the use it or lose it for the general fund, there would be, say, Lake Nipmuc needed something additional, or we got 5 more beavers, we had the trap, and we only had 2,000 left over. That would be the fear there. So I don't know. Historically, how much money do you spend in the springtime? Which I can do further.
Could we, a motion to, because I would want to spend as much as we could, keep her through that time period, and then draw down from not the RAP, from as much as we can, but allow to draw from both of them until September.
So how much total money is needed for us to draw to have you up from 20 hours a week to 30 hours a week? How much money is required to go from 20 to 40?
Out of 40. Your calculations go to 30 right here, right?
Yeah, the accountant did not provide me with 40s, so I think she assumed that maybe you all wouldn't want me to have 40 hours. I don't know. But I can do it.
We can interpolate. So what is the total amount to go from 20 to 30 between now and June 30?
Well, it's on your.
Well, to go from 25 to 30 is 3,000. So to go to 40, it's going to be more like 6,000. So it's going to be like 14,000.
I can do it. Sorry.
Well, the calculations that are in front of us right here is at 18 hours, it's 11,037. At 30 hours, it's 18,395.
I was just going with the over and under, it's because we've already.
Yeah, that's-
$8,122 difference.
Yeah.
That's what you're over as far as the budget, or how is this written up like this?
Sorry, so yeah, the over under, there's $10,000 left in the salary general line. I guess I didn't address that. There's $10,000 left in the salary general line. So me being 18 an hour through the rest of the year, I'm gonna be going $700 over no matter what. So then if I want to do 25, I'll be 5,000 over, 38,000 over, and it'll be 14,000 over if I were to be 40 hours. So there's still
And
room in the wrap account.
Money?
Hmm?
That would have to come out of the wrap money?
I think that would, yeah, so we could say do 5,000 more out of the contract fees and then do 10,000 out of the wrap account and set it up that way where it's split between the general fund.
And you
and
don't
have-
have to spend it all, right?
Right.
I'll make that motion.
Well,
Yeah, second.
I like the fact that you are taking care of all of the day-to-day operations.
Yeah, me too.
Going to the site visits, having the training, having the knowledge, being the liaison that gives us the information that we need, processing the paperwork, the NOIs and stuff like that. It takes a lot of time.
Yeah, it does.
So let me go back and look at your timesheets for the last 2 months. Have you been working 30, 35, 40? Assuming you stopped taking comp time.
Yeah, my times, I hit 32, now we're at 9 o'clock, so 32 and a half. But these are how I save my time. And then I have more detailed day-to-day checklists of what I need done in the day, but I put the meetings and the site visits in my hours. So this week I hit 32 easy, preparing. So but I think again, the finance director wanted to stress that you're not approving me. You are approving me, but you're approving the position.
Do this work, because it's not getting done, right?
Right.
Okay,
And so I think once we get to proposing for next year, it's, the town's been
Another
liable.
argument, that whether
Right.
it's 40 hours or 30 hours or whatever, we have to justify that.
So clearly, if we recommended 30 hours a week, on the week we have meetings, you're over that. How about the in-between weeks? Or do you have sufficient things to do to bring you up to 30 hours?
Yeah, I think there's plenty to do for.
Next question, if we recommended 35, do you have enough things to do to fill up your time?
I think so.
If
Yes.
you went up
I've
to
never,
40, would you be able to do additional progress like making our website look better?
Yeah.
Okay, so you have, so we could basically say 40 hours would be great, 35 would be great, 30 is a minimum.
yes.
Okay. So going back to, if we were to ask for 40 hours a week between the consulting fund and the wrap, how much would there, if we left $2,000 in the consulting fund and took 8,000 from that, how much would we have to withdraw from the wrap to fund 40 hours a week?
6,000.
6,000 when our wrap is 40,000? I think that's reasonable.
Yep.
Okay. So, anyone disagree with recommending 40?
Nope.
No.
All right. I'll entertain a motion that we recommend to the appropriate town agencies that the conservation agent workload is definitely 40 hours a week, both weeks. And our recommendation is that $8,000 to cover the shortfall between now and June 30th, that $8,000 be coming from the consulting budget and the remaining from the wrap.
I second.
No, I can't make that motion.
Oh, I make the motion.
Oh, good. Okay, so you got the motion. So who's going to second it? Okay, moved by Leah and seconded by Susan. Any further discussion?
Yay, can we say that? Yay.
Isabella, with this increased time, would you be able to review the order of conditions when the NOIs come in. What I've noticed is many of these order of conditions are left blank.
Right. So that's where I'm getting to of having me be full-time. I'd be able to, I've gotten draft from Uxbridge, I've gotten draft from Easton, who's are extensive. But most towns have over 150 special conditions, and that sets up the pre-construction site plan that adds the confirming this erosion barriers are there. You can add the phased construction plans. So there,
Right, that's what
Right.
we were speaking to with John earlier about.
I'll send you the slideshow.
I would be
Okay.
like, the applicant should be happy with a phased plan. It protects him too, you know?
Right.
Well,
So,
the Mendon has not done that in the past. We don't have 150 special things on the OOC specifically because we don't, larger cities and towns, they churn these out like cookie cutters. And the plan is presented and approved that same night because the agent has done all the upfront work. What we do is we are much more of a sit back, take 2 months to have them come in multiple times. And we require that the final site plan contains all of the things that other towns will have as part of the OOC. Because we say, no, we don't want an OOC that says things in addition to the site plan, because the engine, someone doing work on site is going to look at that piece of paper. They may not know there's an OOC or may not be paying attention to it. They can't ignore the diagram. So when you and Mike and Damon and Tim are all, and now you are now hammering away saying, no, I want this part of the site plan to say this instead. And then they come back in the second meeting and they've made those changes. And then that's why our OOCs are kind of empty. We now have Isabella who would be participating in that. We would get the NOI and she would do a first pass at reviewing it and then come to the meeting with that. So it would speed up the process as well.
right. And then, yeah, I've started the list of the goals, and this is just pertaining to the Wetland Protection Act. And then there's the other broader goals of the conservation land and, if like doing Lake Nipmuc or GIS, but that gets, that's down the line. But so, yeah, the drafting the order of conditions, and then I also want like checklists for the applicants so that they know ahead of time that they're done with everything. And have everything up on the website so that people don't call the building inspector and say, what do I have to do? They can see it on our site. But yeah, I guess, yeah.
When I get asked by the select board or the finance people, what is the benefit of Isabella working these extra hours? I'll say additional oversight on 23 Cape Road, additional oversight on Uxbridge Road, fielding questions
The
about
states are
trees.
getting bigger.
That even though we had a very small number of NOIs, they were huge projects.
plus those extra regulations now that are gonna come into
With,
play.
with the new,
We're gonna give,
planning board, regulations that are going in, now they want to do, multi-unit housing, cluster housing and stuff like that. So the sites are gonna get bigger,
Especially with the new zoning overlay, yeah.
right?
And we're getting drinking water and all those things.
Right, so there's going to be a larger need for your time to be increased.
And the lots are more problematic. The tougher lots.
yeah, because we've built so much, now we've got to build in those areas we didn't want to build in.
We done, Mr. Chair?
I believe that covers everything.
Yeah, you have to close the meeting though.
So
Make a motion to adjourn.
A second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, opposed? We're done. Stop the recording.
Ugh.